All right, guys, so I'm gonna go over scabbards now. And this is a love-hate deal, okay? You've gotta have them, but there's no way to scabbard a rifle on a saddle without it being slightly a pain in the ass, all right? So for all of our drop camps and those sort of hunts, and then a lot of our guided trips, we're gonna use this type of scabbard, and we're gonna have them scabbarded this direction, right? Basically perpendicular to the ground, up and down, all right? The bonus of this is that the scabbard, I'll show you the other way that you could put a scabbard on a horse. It's not under the fender of the stirrup, so you don't have as much pain, okay? When it's up here, it's not causing you any issues on that front because it's not under your leg in terms of comfort. The one negative is it can kind of interfere with your reining a little bit up here, so you have to be careful of that. The other thing is the butt of the scabbard and the butt of the rifle is going to be right up there by the horn, all right, of the saddle. And I didn't really touch on that in the riding component of this, but obviously with your non-dominant hand, if you need something to grab onto, you're going to grab onto the horn of the saddle. It's pretty intuitive. But it's right next to the butt of your rifle when you have your rifle scabbarded this way. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to grab on the butt of your rifle because there's a lot of movement in the scabbard, okay? It's not firmly like a component of the saddle, so it's not a good handle, all right? Okay, so like I said, all of our drop camps and most of our guided stuff, we're gonna have the rifle scabbarded that way. In terms of your rifle setup, these scabbards will take a large objective scope in them, but you can't have a big bipod, or really any bipod, on the front of the rifle for them to fit into this scabbard or any other scabbard. So the bipod's gonna have to come out. In some cases, even the sling has to come off, okay? But most of the time we can push the sling against the rifle and push it in there, no problem. So generally what you're gonna see is the gun slip down this way, okay? And then we're gonna take the buckle here at the top, lock it in, okay? And that's how your rifle is gonna be mounted on the saddle. And I'll jump on, I'll show you the tricks that I mentioned real quick. All right, so like I said, use the horn for stability, not the rifle, if you're gonna use it. So if you use the horn to get on like this, grab it, not the rifle. So here, it's a little tricky because that rifle, when it's scabbarded that way, it's gonna kind of push your stirrup down, so you might have to kick the rifle forward a little bit. All right, let me turn Rebel here. You can see. So there, it's not going to interfere with you very much, okay? Much better than if it's under your leg, all right? Okay, so one of the other challenges of this, like I mentioned, is it's right here, okay? So you got to rein kind of around it, all right? So if I want to go that way, I've got to go around. I can't pull underneath like this, okay? You're kind of asking for trouble if you're getting the reins under there, all right? So that's one way that we scabbard rifles. All right, guys, so this is a different type of scabbard, and it's a different way it could be attached to the saddle, all right? And generally, the two go together, okay? These leather saddles, they're historically, this is the main type of scabbard that's used. The problem with them is they're generally slimmer, which that's a bonus in the sense that when they're under your fender like that, they're not that uncomfortable, because really it's just the barrel down here and a very thin chunk of leather, excuse me. So it doesn't really affect your posture and the mechanics of your knee and stuff like one of those big scabbards would if it's under that fender. All right, so that's the benefit of it, but that's also the negative, right? A large objective scope, like a 50 millimeter scope, it's not going to fit in this type of scabbard, all right? Or you're going to have to get like a custom modified leather scabbard, which they do make, but it's just something to consider. This is generally going to be best for like a slimmer rifle, smaller objective scope. A lot of the mountain guys in northern BC, they still use this type of scabbard, and they put them on their gear like this. So you might have to be set up that way. All right. Okay. So basically, we'll put the rifle in here. I'll show you how it looks. So it's muzzle down, butt up. Gonna go in here. So you're gonna immediately see the other big benefit is it's not up in your reining up there, right? Okay, and it's just not this bulk in front. So it is nice that way. In a nice slim rifle like this rifle, it's perfect, right? And yeah, there's a little bump there, but it's not too bad, all right? And the coolest thing about this is you can get off on the proper side of the horse, the left-hand side of the horse. You don't have it in the way up there. And then you can reach around the horse's ass like this. You can pull the rifle out of here. And if you have a good guide, he sets you up so you can lay the rifle right over the saddle and just blast the dull sheep right off of the back of the saddle, or elk or whatever, right? Actually, no, don't ever fucking do that. That's a bad idea, but it's cool in concept. And so that's just one of the goofy things I always think about when I see a scabbard like that. But it is actually easier to pull the gun out, but you're not going to shoot like that on a horse. But anyways, that's a slick way to do it. It's really just a matter of what kind of rifle you have and what gear the outfitter has. So another thing, guys, that hunters want to take with them and kind of have handy a lot of the time is a shooting stick. Sometimes you can have them in the scabbard with your gun, but a lot of times they're going to have to be tied on back here. And this can be a little bit tricky because if they're long set, they're going to extend the width of your horse, right? And it's going to hit brush and stuff like that, and it can be kind of a hazard, particularly when you're swinging your leg over the back. So if you're going to carry a shooting stick on a horseback hunt where you're actually hunting off horseback, you want to make sure that they're pretty compact, right? If they're much longer than this, like they get into this length, they're not going to be a great option for a horseback hunt. Sometimes, like if your guide's got a pack animal with you, they can put them on the pack animal, but then the accessibility of them is a lot less, all right? So just keep in mind that you're gonna have to kind of figure that out early on in your hunt, the best way to do it in shorter sticks, or sticks that can, they break down to being shorter, are best. All right, guys, so I'm gonna go over how to basically, when you're hunting off a horse, how to dismount and then potentially get a shooting opportunity. But before I go into that, there's a couple safety things that are really important, and they're related to that, because generally that can be kind of a frantic situation, or people make it frantic, all right? And the first thing is, every time your gun goes into that scabbard, at a bare minimum, it has to not have a bullet in the chamber, period, okay? I actually even prefer rifles with detachable magazines where they can come out too, just so a round doesn't get chambered when you don't think it's getting chambered. But anyways, at a bare minimum, watch your bolt go all the way in and make sure you're not sticking around in the chamber before you put them in the scabbard, okay? And make sure your safety's on. And the thing about it is, I mean, you should always, basic firearm safety is important, but scabbards are notoriously dangerous for a couple reasons. One, you've got a lot of friction going in, and you've got a lot of friction coming out. That's part of how they work, right? They have a lot of tension on the rifle, so your gun just doesn't go flying, out past the horse's ass if you've got it like this or whatever. So they work that way. The downside is they can grab a hold of safeties, they can click safeties very easily. They can even pull a bolt back. I've seen that a lot, okay? So you have to be careful, all right? So it's got to go in there with no round in the chamber, all right? And then the other thing is, when you're pulling a scabbarded rifle out of a scabbard, you have to have some trigger finger discipline, okay? It's just like pulling a pistol out of a holster or something. Go in flat and keep your fingers straight, period. It's a very tight compartment. It's not like a holster in the sense that you have space outside of the holster. Your hand's going in here and you're grabbing. It's so easy to pull the trigger, guys, when you do this. So you have to be very, very careful, all right? And then pull straight back with straight fingers, okay? And then pull out and you'll be good. When this is gonna be a problem, most likely, is when somebody's frantic, right? You're going down, you pop into a meadow, and it's the middle of the day, and you weren't thinking there's gonna be elk anywhere, and there's a big bull elk standing there in the middle of the meadow, right? So you bail off the horse, okay? And in that process, hopefully you get off the horse cleanly, which as a novice is gonna be hard, in a frantic fashion. So if that happens, you see an opportunity, the first thing you gotta think in your mind is slow way down, okay? You're not gonna do the Wild West thing that I showed you earlier as a joke, you're not gonna shoot near that horse. You're better off just going slow, okay? So dismount the horse and then take your time getting the rifle out of the scabbard. Once you have the rifle out of the scabbard, hopefully at this point, you've handed your reins to your guide, okay? And then most mountain horses that have been guided on, if as long as the guide has a hold of them, okay, it's fine. Generally, if you're, try to step 3 or 4 feet away from them and take your time, get a good rest and shoot, okay? If the horses do for some reason get away from the guide, which they're not gonna react, like they're gonna, they are going to react, right? It varies. Some of them don't really give a shit. Some of them are probably gonna pop away from the guide and run 30, 40 yards and then stop, just wondering what the hell is going on, okay? But just realize that take your time in those situations. A lot of the times, if you're real smooth about it, the game animals won't even move. It's kind of weird. If you're frantic and shit's flapping everywhere and it looks like you're about to have a wreck, the animals will basically sense some sort of, commotion and head out, okay? But a lot of times if you're just smooth about it, game will watch. Sometimes in a lot of areas they're used to horses, so they don't really worry about it too much, all right? But just be smooth about it and your chances of having success in those situations are a whole lot better. If you get frantic, it's just not gonna happen. You're not gonna have success with those type of shot opportunities. The other thing, and this is more about your guides in the area and how the game reacts, sometimes in those situations, if you jump game on a horse, a lot of times the best thing to do is not to stop. The best thing to do is to keep on riding. So don't be prepared for that. A lot of times guides, if they jump elk in a meadow or something, what they'll do is they'll just keep slowly walking through the meadow, all right? And they'll get to the timber on the other side of the meadow, get in there 50 yards, stop, get you off the horse quietly, tie up the horses, and when you walk and then slowly stalk back into that meadow with the wind right, a lot of time the game will not leave. It's kind of like driving by it with a vehicle. A lot of times you'll see game in a pasture, an alfalfa field or something, and they'll be out in the wide open and a car starts driving by and they look at it, but they don't just sprint. If the car keeps driving, they'll just watch it disappear and then they'll go back to eating, right? But if that car stops, and sure as hell, if people get out of it, the game will start hauling ass out of the field, right? So it's the same type of situation. A lot of times you're better off slowly moving to cover rather than getting into a frantic situation. There are times if you jump a big mule deer buck like right next to the horse or whatever, he's probably boogered and he's gonna go, and that might be your chance to kill him, right? But a lot of times it's the alternative. You're better off just moving to cover and kind of working your way back in there. So anyways, hopefully that covers that part of the whole hunting on horseback deal.